The executive director of the COVID task force at Piedmont Healthcare, joining us now to talk about the latest COVID surge sweeping across the country. So entirely predictable, because I remember hearing this in November leading up to Thanksgiving. People were traveling, big numbers at the airports. Everyone's doing the family meal, getting together. There's the parties, there's the big dinners, and here we are. So this was utterly predictable.
It is utterly predictable. That's a great way to put it. I think, though, there is no getting around the fact that we are well within another COVID surge and within this Omicron family. We are seeing cases increase 53%. We see hospitalizations increase 39%, and deaths also have increased nearly 30%. We see vaccination rates at the lowest levels that we've seen to date. Just 11% of people have moved forward with their bivalent vaccine. And just last week, we see that vaccines are available for children now, less than 5 years of age, and that has received a very low uptake as well. And so as we move into this holiday season, I think we can expect a storm of viruses and illnesses to await us there.
And listen, and that's what's been in the news most recently is, what do they call it, the triple-demic or tridemic. So you have the COVID, which we're almost 3 years into that, RSV surging as well, and flu. It's flu season again. So you have all those three things floating out there. Plus this time of year, I've always said from Halloween to MLK weekend is kind of America's gluttony period. You know, it's parties, it's big dinners, it's food, it's travel, it's booze, it's all of those things. We all know that. And people are getting together, and just the general COVID fatigue. So when you just take the natural human nature of this time of year, with low vaccination rates, let's be honest, they're not going to go up. So it is what it is. So it isn't how we beat back the surge, but are we better prepared to deal with it because it's coming and it's here?
Well, we have the information, and there's one thing that you stated that was very interesting, is that maybe we're not going to get the vaccinations. And even though just 11% of us have moved forward with this bivalent vaccine, when you look at surveys, more than 50% of people state that they are planning to get this bivalent vaccine sometime over the Christmas or December holidays. And so we are interested to see how that projects as we move through the Christmas holidays. And so people are not reticent to get the vaccine. It's almost as if they're timing it to see where they should be. But that is yet to be seen. Let's see what happens and whether people really will get this vaccination.
And you look at the numbers there on the screen, under than 5, or less than 5, I should say, 13.5, 12, almost 15, 18, goes up to 16%. And not surprisingly, folks 65 and older, who've always been the most vulnerable, that number is far higher than the others. Are you at least encouraged that the trend line seems to be that older Americans are getting it? They still remain the most susceptible because of age, and most likely at that age, underlying condition.
Right. I'm actually discouraged by looking at that because the elderly, and by elderly we're describing it here as greater than 65 years of age, have the highest rates of hospitalizations and deaths. And so that 35% is incredibly low to protect that population. Even as of today, the highest numbers of deaths continue to be in that population. And so 35% is incredibly concerning for that demographic. They are the most vulnerable, and they're having the most deaths. And so, yes, they are winning the race to the bottom at 35%. They have the highest numbers, but it is incredibly, they are the most critical group, and we've got to get those numbers higher than that.
And I've heard that message from the beginning of all this. We want the numbers to be higher, and PR campaigns, and Dr. Fauci's running everywhere, singing from the same hymn book for almost 3 years now. The needle doesn't move, and when it moves, it even goes down because people are just tired of it. Been in a lot of restaurants, a lot of malls, a lot of, I had to fly. The mask thing is done. I get weird looks because I still wear mine. I was at a rental car place, and this woman, who I didn't know from a can of paint, after I walked away from the counter, take off your mask, breathe, breathe. And first of all, I was like, lady, I don't know you. Who are you talking to? Where's your medical degree? But it's become a real cultural thing, and that's not going anywhere. I do keep the faith on that front because the numbers don't back up the faith.
Right. It is definitely time for us to get back into our mask. And certainly if you are traveling, we have multiple households that are coming together. And here's another statistic that's very interesting. Vaccinated rates of death have increased. So those who are vaccinated, and what that tells us is if you received your primary series of vaccinations, which is now more than a year, you no longer have that resistance. It is time to get your booster shot. It used to be the unvaccinated were by and large the ones who are being hospitalized and dying. But we also now have to consider those who are fully vaccinated, meaning they completed that primary series, so remote that their numbers are also now equal to those that are unvaccinated. So it's time to get your booster, and it's absolutely time to make certain that you are wearing your mask in specific situations, especially indoors, where it's crowded, where there may be less ventilation as the seasons get colder and colder and colder. And also when you are traveling and you're mixed in literally with thousands of people with unknown statuses and this mix of viruses, this medley of viruses that is all moving around. You've got to be able to manage that and mitigate that. We have the tools. Only the RSV. We do not have a vaccine, and we do not have therapy. So again, those masks protect you and protect others with RSV as well.
And I hate to end on a down note real quick, though. If that doesn't happen, and I'm incredibly cynical because I think the numbers justify cynicism, what does that mean for America's battle with COVID? This is just life now? Just surge and another shot, because there's a limit to how many times people can get jabbed.
Right. I mean, and we're headed into a rough patch with Christmas and moving into the new year. Make no mistake, flu season is the worst that we've seen in a decade. We already have as many flu cases currently as we've had in the entire year last year, and flu season runs through May.
But I heard the shot was pretty good this year.
The shot is good.
For those of us who got it.
People are still need to get the shot for it to work. You can't just know about the shot. You got to actually get it for it to provide some protection. And we see incredibly high numbers of flu and an early start to the season. We're not even halfway through our flu season yet. So we're headed into a rough patch. Make no mistake, COVID is rising, and we are in this COVID pandemic.
With no end in sight.
With no end in sight currently.
Well, it's a sobering but necessary